I stood up, put the bag on my left shoulder, and gently pulled apart the Velcro of the coveralls so that, if necessary, I could get to my weapon. Taking my time, I moved to the left-hand side of the building. Before I did anything, I had to defeat the motion detector. I was to the left of it, with my back against the wall. Putting the bag in my left hand, I kept my eyes on the detector high above me, and started slowly edging towards it. When I got more or less as far as I estimated I could without getting pinged, I bent down and placed the bag by my feet. Everything I did from now on would happen on the near side of the bag. Security lights that respond to movement make life much harder for people like me, but only if they cover the whole of the building. I found it strange that there was only one detector, rather than 2 or 3 overlapping each other to eliminate dead spots. I was expecting at any moment to be pinged by one I hadn't noticed. But whoever had installed the security system had obviously worked on the premise that only the lower fire escape door had to be covered, and not the approach routes to it. It was nearly 1 a.m., which left me just over 5 hours before first light. Time was against me, but I wasn't going to rush. I went the long way round to go and collect one of the pallets. I got both hands in between the slats of wood, heaved it up against my chest, and started to walk slowly. The ground still had a top layer of slush, and my shoes squelched as they made contact. I finally reached the wall, placed the pallet against the brickwork on my side of the bag, and went back for the second one. I wedged the 2 pallets together. The bottom of the second jammed into the gap about 3 rungs down from the top of the first to make a ladder. I stopped, looked, and listened. The pallets had been heavy, and I heard nothing apart from the sound of my lungs gasping for air through my dry throat. I climbed up on the first pallet, and that was fine. I got up onto the second pallet, and it, too, seemed stable enough. I started to climb. I'd moved just 2 rungs when the whole structure buckled and collapsed. I hit the ground like a bag of shit, and the 2 pallets slammed down onto each other with a resounding thud and clatter. Shit, shit, shit. I was lying on my back with one of the pallets across my legs. No one came running to investigate. No dogs started barking. No lights came on. Nothing but the noise of the traffic and me swallowing hard, trying to moisten my mouth. Luckily, everything had happened on my side of the bag. I lifted the pallet and crawled from under it, quietly cursing. This was shit. But what else could I have done? Bought a ladder at the mall and carried it to the target. I moved to the corner of the building, got down on the tips of my toes and fingers, as if I was going to do a press-up, and stuck my head round towards Bald Street. I was still annoyed with myself. I could spend all night improvising before I even got into a position to attack this motion detector. Maybe a ladder wasn't such a stupid idea. I should have got one and somehow tried to dump it off earlier on, then picked it up en route. But it was too late now. I stood against the wall and reevaluated. I decided to react as the situation dictated, which was the firm's favourite get-out clause. It simply meant they didn't know what to do. Bit like me, really. Fuck it. I was going to get Kelly. All she'd have to do was lean against the pallets. She only had to be there for about 15 minutes and I'd be done. After that, she could stay with me, or I could dump her back at the hotel. I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. I picked up the bag, retraced the route to the high fence and, staying on the target side, dumped the bag and coveralls. Then I followed the fence along, looking for an opening to get onto Bald Street. There wasn't time to do the job properly and go back all the way round. I finally found a service alley between 2 buildings that belonged in some film about the mafia in 1950s New York. I was straight down it to the road and walked briskly to the hotel, no more than 2 minutes away. It was only then that I realised I didn't have the room key because I'd left it in the bin liner. I'd have to wake Kelly. I knocked gently at first, then a bit harder. Just when I was starting to flap, I heard, "Hi, Nick." A moment or two later, the door opened. I gave her a look of concern. "How did you know it was me? You should have waited until I answered." Then I saw the chair and the drag marks on the carpet. I smiled and gave her a pat on the head. "You looked through the spy hole, didn't you, clever clogs? Hey, because you're so clever, I've got a job for you. I really, really need your help. Would you like to help me?" She looked sleepy. "What do you want me to do?" "I'll show you when we get there. Will you come with me?" "I suppose so." I had a brainwave. "Do you want to do what your dad does? Because this is what Daddy does for the good guys. You can tell him all about it soon." Her face brightened. She was a happy bunny again. She had to more or less run to keep up with me. We got to the alleyway and headed down towards the waste ground. It was dark. She wasn't too keen. She started dragging her feet. "Where are we going, Nick?" "You want to play spies, don't you?" I said in an excited whisper. "Imagine you are a Power Ranger and you're going on a secret mission." We reached the waste ground and took the same route towards the chain-link fence. I held her hand and she kept pace. I guessed she was getting into it. We got to the bag. I picked up the coveralls and said, "I've got to put these on because they're special spy coveralls." Her face changed when she saw them. I suddenly realised she must have made the connection with the men who'd come to see Kev. "Your daddy wears them too. You'd better be a spy as well. Undo your coat." I turned it inside out and told her to put it back on. She liked that. I picked up the bag and put it over my shoulder. I pointed. "Now, we'll walk really slowly over there." We reached the pallets, and I put the bag down in the same place as before. "Okay?" I asked, giving her a thumbs up. "Okay." Thumbs up. "See that thing up there? If that sees you, it'll go, 'Whoa, whoa,' and there'll be lights and all sorts, and then we've lost. So you must never go the other side of that bag, okay?" I pointed. "Okay." We gave each other another thumbs up. I repositioned the pallets and showed her what I wanted her to do. I could hear her making little grunts. She had started leaning as I'd shown her and probably thought she had to make noises, doing manual work and all. I unzipped the bag, pulled out the clock and egg box, and slipped the minute hand into its sellotape sleeve. I gently squeezed the tape, and it held nice and firm. Kelly was still pushing, and I told her to rest. At least she was keen. She was watching me as I put the clock and egg box on the floor and placed 2 elastic bands around my wrist. "It's magic. Watch me." She nodded, probably still trying to work out how I'd stop the remote control from operating the TV. "You ready, Kelly?" "Ready." "Let's go." I climbed up slowly, trying to give the least weight and movement for Kelly to have to handle. Once up, and about an arm's length from one side of the detector, I got my wrist resting on my chest so that I had a good, firm support. I turned the egg box so that its long edge was horizontal with the ground. Then I moved it gently towards and about 6 inches below the motion detector, but not going any further than its front. Once there, I rested my back against the wall and my wrists on my chest. I'd have to stay like that for about 15 minutes. I was waiting for the egg box to move up slowly and gently against the face of the motion detector. The movement so imperceptible that the detector wasn't sensitive enough to register it. Otherwise, it would have triggered every time a spider walked across its face. I just hoped Kelly didn't give up. I would find out soon. Now and again I looked down and winked at her. Good this, isn't it? She looked back at me with a big smile, or so I assumed, because all I could see was an inside-out coat, a hood, and a cloud of breath. As we both waited for the minute hand to become vertical, all of a sudden there was a single whoo of a dying police siren. Shit. Shit. It was on the road on the other side of the building. It couldn't have anything to do with us. Otherwise, why just one unit, and why use the siren anyway? I couldn't move. If I did, it would trip the device. And what for? I hadn't even seen torchlight yet. Nick, did you hear that? It's okay, Kelly. Just keep on pushing. It's okay, I can hear them. What could I do? I told myself not to flap, to stay calm and think. A shout echoed around the car park. It had come from Bald Street, but a bit of a distance away. Other voices joined in. An argument had broken out. I couldn't make out what was being said, but there were car doors being slammed and words exchanged. Then the sound of a car starting up. All I could think of was that someone had parked up while I fetched Kelly, possibly one of the couples I'd seen from Pat's car. They'd been busy getting the window steamed up and had got caught by the police. It sounded plausible. I just made myself believe it. The egg box was close to vertical. I held my breath. This wasn't a science. We had a 50-50 chance of success, no more. If it pinged us, we'd have to fuck off quick style and take our chances. At last, the box obscured the detector. No lights came on. With my teeth, I pulled the two thin elastic bands off my wrist. I got the first one over the top of the egg box and around the motion detector. Then pulled the back of it tight, twisted it and wound round another loop of the band. I put the other band round to make it even tighter. The motion detector was defeated. I slipped the clock off the box and put it in one of the deep pockets at the front of my coveralls. I clambered down and rubbed Kelly's shoulders. Good work. She gave me a huge smile. Still not too sure what it was all about. But hey, this was what Daddy did. Chapter 24. The next thing to attack was the alarms, which would mean neutralizing the telephone lines. One of Pat's presents was a disruption device. A black box of computer technology about 8 inches by 6 inches. Coming out of it were 6 different coloured leads with crocodile grips at the end. A combination of which I'd attached to the telephone line. When the intruder alarm inside the building was tripped, a signal should, in theory, be sent to the monitor station or the police. However, it wouldn't get there because the disruption device would have engaged all the lines. I got close to Kelly's ear and said, "You can help me even more now." I put the clock back into the bag, picked it up, and walked past the fire exit doors to the utilities bank. From the bag, I pulled out another item from Pat's shopping list. A 2-metre square of thick blackout material, the sort photographers use. I winked at Kelly. "More magic," I said. "And I'll need you to tell me if it works." I was talking in a very low tone. At night, whispering can sometimes be heard as far away as normal speech. I came right up to her ear again and said, "We've got to be really quiet, okay? If you want to talk to me, just tap me on the shoulder, and then I'll look at you, and you can talk in my ear, do you understand?" She spoke into my ear. "Yes." "That's great, because that's what spies do." I put on my rubber gloves. She stood there with an earnest expression on her face, but looking quite stupid with her coat inside out and the hood up. I said, "If you see any of the lights coming out, I also want you to tap me on the shoulder, okay? Yeah. Okay. Stand there against the wall. I moved her into position, looking out towards the fences and bushes. I want you to stand very still. If you see or hear anything, you tap me on the shoulder, okay? Yeah. Even if there's only a little bit of light coming from me, tap me on the shoulder, okay? Yeah. I went over to the bank of utilities, put the material over my shoulders, turned on the mag lights with a red filter and got to work. I'd used disruption devices many times. I worked with a torch in my mouth and was soon dribbling. I attached the clips to the telephone line in a variety of combinations. As they bit in, a row of lights came on, and the aim was to get all 6 red lights up. When that happened, the lines were engaged. 10 minutes was all it took. I rested the box in between the electricity and the gas meters. I only hoped there wasn't an audio alarm as well as a telephoned warning. I doubted it somehow, seeing as the budget had only stretched to 1 external detector. I took off the blanket, wrapped it up into a bundle and handed it to Kelly.